After the shocking spectacle that unfolded in Johannesburg today, more than ever, I am really happy just to bank a win. It wasn't pretty. The All Blacks had to work hard for it. They got themselves into a hole in the third quarter, but they found a way out of it. So I am feeling reasonably sanguine about the result today in Córdoba. 41-24 certainly looks like a comfortable scoreline. It was anything but comfortable in the second half, but the ABs unleashed a pretty potent bench, and ultimately the impact players sealed it. How far we have come from 2024. Those fourth quarter fades are not a feature of the All Blacks performances this year. Knock on wood, long may that continue. Now, I don't want to sugarcoat this. We'll get into the nitty gritty. I'm going to call out a couple players. But I just want to say, if you're an All Blacks fan, after what we saw the Wallabies do to South Africa this morning, I think it's okay to be a little bit stoked about this win. Promising signs from the All Blacks as we head towards Eden Park. But there's still one more game to play next week against Argentina. Now, a lot of people said this was a great All Blacks team. This was a very experienced All Blacks team. I was one of them. I was very complimentary. How could you not be? And yet this isn't the first choice All Blacks team. Because any team that's missing Tamaiti Williams, Tyrell Lomax, Wallace Satiti, and Cam Roigard is not completely first choice. That is about a third of the team that you could improve upon. Now, injuries are a bit like a house of cards. Sure, we could put Satiti back in, we could put Tyrell Lomax back in, load those cards on top, maybe another card buckles below. You never really have a fully fit squad, but my belief is the All Blacks can lift in intensity next week with a few big stars coming back. But let's digest what we saw in Córdoba today. And let's recognize that these Argentina boys are no mugs. They had 317 caps waiting on the bench, including Carreras. Very experienced team that they were fielding. And anytime you're going up against Matera and Crema in the loose forwards, you have your work cut out for you. And I think we were all anxious to see how Duplessis Kirifi would go today, starting at 7, surprising a few people when he got picked at 7, pushing Savea to 8. I would say he went pretty well. We didn't see the trademark turnovers, but he was relentless. He was a tackling machine. His work rate was outstanding. My view is that he is being groomed for a bench role down the line. I think that is where he will shine, but make no mistake, he will have benefited from these minutes today. And he certainly didn't let the team down. So a pass mark for sure for Duplessis Kirifi. The All Blacks drew first blood in this game. It was a penalty to Beauden Barrett. He kicked the ball over after being cleaned out in a high tackle, which resulted in the penalty. And then 6 minutes in, there were early signs of potent counter-rucking from the All Blacks. It looked like a giant black caterpillar just rolling over the top of Argentina. And I was thinking to myself, yes, more of this, please. This looks pretty good. In the 8th minute, a pretty solid rolling maul from the All Blacks gets shut down by Argentina. The ABs elect to implement some pick and go. They narrow the Argentina defense. The ball pops out to Will Jordan, who throws one heck of a bridge pass all the way out to Sevu Reece on the right wing, who catches the ball high and dots it down. The All Blacks are up 10-0. The Argentinians replied right away, and I got to tell you, their try was an exact carbon copy replica of what the All Blacks had just done to them. The Argies were able to get field position by kicking downfield, regathering. They go to their line out, they win the ball clean, rolling maul, pick and go up the middle, narrow the All Blacks defense, ball goes wide, scoring on the right wing. It was Iskro dotting down for the Pumas, and yeah, look, I had to kind of rub my eyes, and it was just deja vu. Those tries were virtually identical to each other. There were a few yellow cards in this game. The first one was doled out in the 17th minute. It was a yellow card to number 1 for the Pumas, Vivas, for repeated infringements. And basically, he just smacked the ball out of Cortez Ratama's hands while he was on the ground. Poor guy. I mean, he did a cynical infringement, no doubt, but you could just see, like, his hand moved ahead of his brain. As soon as he smacked the ball, even as he was in the motion of it, he just knew he was doing the wrong thing. But fair enough, Argentina was piling on a few indiscretions there at the breakdown as the All Blacks were ramping up. So it was fair that they had a man in the bin for 10 minutes. So the All Blacks had opportunities to attack, but actually some pretty brutal defense from the Pumas was stopping the All Blacks in their tracks at this point. I remember that Billy Proctor got cleaned up pretty good, and then Pablo Matera absolutely nailed Rieko Ioane ball and all. I mean, this was the definition of a hospital pass, just a quintessential, oh my God, I can't believe you're making me catch this kind of ball. Rieko was absolutely nailed by Matera, who, of course, used to be one of Razor Robertson's soldiers for the Crusaders. He had that title-winning season down in Christchurch, so he knows some of the All Black boys pretty well. My feeling about the All Black strategy here was that they actually overplayed their kicking game a little bit. Yeah, the ball in hand stuff wasn't quite clicking, but you just felt that it might start to if they persisted with that tactic. If anything, they kicked the ball away a little bit too much and sort of let Argentina off the hook. Remember, they're down a man. So it's 14 on 15. I just wondered if they might have put some more wear and tear on the Argentinians if they had kept the ball in play, recycled it quickly. But it didn't quite go that way in this 10-minute spell. I would say this was some of New Zealand at their worst, probably between minutes 15 and 25. Disconnect between the backline players. Inaccurate passes, handling errors. What do you put it down to? I'm not sure that Billy Proctor really shone in this game. Wasn't a terrible game, but I'm not sure that he just emphatically claimed that number 13 jersey as we'd like to see. I'm also not sure that Rieko Ioane is back to his best on the wing. So I hate to single players out, but that's probably one of the reasons you subscribe to this channel. Subscribe now if you haven't, by the way. I just think that we were missing a little something there on attack at times. But thank God for Ardie Savea, who in the 22nd minute got his leg drive going. He smashed us over the gain line. The ball goes out to Will Jordan. He stepped inside, absolutely ripped the Argentina defense to shreds. He puts the ball on for Cortez Ratima, lays it on a platter. Ratima running a gorgeous halfback support line, and the ABs are in. So just when things were looking a little bit dicey for New Zealand, you go to your best forward, Savea. You go to your best back, Jordan. They conjure absolute magic. And that's why I'm reasonably happy with this game. Yes, there were those passages of disconnect, but sometimes when the All Blacks clicked, I mean, they just looked elite. They looked like they were playing in a different stratosphere to Argentina. In the 32nd minute, Kremer, number 7, went down. They did the old taping up the boot thing, and he played on and was out there for a long time, so clearly heroically battling through a lot of pain there. In the 37th minute, All Blacks go to the corner. Scott Barrett wins the line out. We get a tight rolling maul going, and Ardie Savea is in. Now, because Argentina contested this line out up in the air, by the time the rolling maul was happening on the ground, they were really in a bad position. So it was a nicely worked try from the All Blacks. They were now in a pretty good position going into the half, but they were not done yet. The All Blacks showed a really bloodthirsty streak here, and I, for one, absolutely loved it. It's one of the reasons I am buzzing a little bit after this game. It's what they did at halftime. The All Blacks won a scrum penalty right on the 40th minute. Okay, so it's stroke of halftime stuff. They're already up. You could just really put the ball out at that point. You could just play it conservatively. The ABs did not do that. They were courageous. They were optimistic. They smelled blood. They took the penalty. They kicked for the corner. They go for the line out. And wouldn't you know it, Ratima scythes in close to the try line. They're about 5 meters out. There's some beautiful recycling, and then that man, Sevu Reece, scores a second one out wide. Wow. Ruthless stuff from the All Blacks. And it felt like that actually was really pivotal that they got those points there, because Argentina came back ferociously in the second half, and it turns out New Zealand really did need that healthy buffer. They were up 31 points to 10 at the half. Sure, some scrappy stuff from New Zealand, as I've already spoken about at length. But when you go up against Argentina, 21 points in the lead at halftime, I'm sorry, but you have to be happy with that. I cannot just be glass half empty about that. That is a pretty damn solid first half from New Zealand. Plenty of room for improvement. I was reasonably stoked with that scoreline, to be honest with you. I'd love to say the second half was just as exciting, but the first 10 minutes was some of the most forgettable rugby I've ever seen, so much so that I don't even really have anything to tell you about it. It was just an absolute blur, punctuated by one amazing line break where the Argentinians did rip the All Blacks open on a nice flat ball. Things got a bit interesting when the team started going to the bench, though. You had Ollie Norris come on for the All Blacks. You had Samisoni Taukei'aho come on. You had Finlay Christie come on, replacing Cortez Ratama. Unfortunately, Christie, who was pretty good in this game coming off the bench, but he did make a bit of a gaffe defensively, as did Jordie Barrett. The two of them simply could not contain the number 10 for Argentina, Albanese, who slit the All Blacks line way too easily. The All Blacks defense was very good today, but it just had a couple of blips, and this was one of them. 10 goes through, carves it up easily, he's in. It was just kind of like a blink and you miss it kind of moment defensively for the All Blacks, but that was all it took. Suddenly, Argentina was coming back into the game. So my note here was this. Was it individual brilliance from Albanese, or can the Pumas claw their way back with a collective team effort? We're about to find out. In the 57th minute, the Argies won a scrum against the feed. That got the Pumas back into the game, and importantly, it pulled the crowd back into the game. Suddenly, they found their voice. You know, they'd been a little bit gloomy after the break, given that their team was down 21 points, but they start finding that passionate temperament. They're singing, they're dancing, and I'm thinking, okay, here we go. This could go off a cliff pretty quickly, you know, even with the healthy lead the All Blacks have. The All Blacks crowded in too much on a line out. Penalty to Argentina. Pablo Matera takes a quick tap, and he is just like a buzzsaw. I mean, he runs this ball up. He absolutely smashes into the line. A yellow card eventuates for Billy Proctor, who infringed at the ruck. Look, the All Blacks were under all kinds of pressure here. They were giving away multiple penalty advantages. I have no issue with the yellow card. The ref was consistent. You may wish that there were less yellow cards overall in the game, but I felt he was relatively consistent. And listen, I'll put my hand up, you know, wearing my All Black shirt here and say, yeah, you know, probably you did need to put a Kiwi in the bin because the ABs were struggling to contain the Pumas, who were starting to run pretty hot on attack, and they were making a few cynical infringements. I'll be the first to admit that. So Argentina scrums down. They're trying to punish the All Blacks, but the All Blacks put in a monster scrum. Really good stuff there. They hold their own. They turn it over. That is another reason I'm feeling pretty good about the ABs. There were 3 or 4 huge scrums in a row, either side of halftime. They were monumental for the All Blacks. Really critical. And that is going to be a big attacking and defensive weapon for us going forward in this Rugby Championship. That is a rock that we can build upon, particularly with Tamaiti Williams and Tyrell Lomax returning soon. However, in the 62nd minute, the Argentinians said not so fast. They took a quick tap off another penalty. They're about 3 meters out. They get advantage. They just kept getting advantage. There were some magic covering tackles from the All Blacks, who, remember, are a man down. So they scrambled pretty well defensively, but ultimately number 8, Oviato, he goes in under the posts. 24 points to 31. It's starting to feel a bit like the Wallabies' comeback against the Springboks earlier today. The All Blacks really needed a clutch play to get themselves out of jail here, and they did that. In the 66th minute, they got a much-needed penalty. They went for the corner rather than going for the 3. Now, my thoughts were maybe you do just take the 3 at this point. You know, make it more than a one-score game. The All Blacks didn't do it. And I praised their attacking temperament earlier after halftime, right, where they went for the jugular and they got the result. So I can't talk out of both sides of my mouth. I need to praise them again here. The right call was made by Captain Ardie Savea because Scott Barrett had gone off. They went for the line out. Samisoni Taukei'aho, he put the ball under his big wing. He dotted it down, scored a try off the back of a destructive rolling maul for the All Blacks. But squint your eyes, and it looked just like the Chiefs. No, I'm not talking about my orange cat. I'm talking about the Mulu men, the Waikato Chiefs. So many times Taukei'aho has scored off a rolling maul. Well, I was just happy the All Blacks could go to this weapon here. And I was a little bit surprised that Argentina really seemed to have no answer for it. I was pleasantly surprised by the potency of the All Blacks rolling maul, because earlier on, the Argentinians had sort of held serve. You know, the rolling maul was pretty solid for the ABs, but it would get shut down, then they'd go wider. This time, they were just making reasonably easy ground with the rolling maul, and I just wondered, are they going to go for it again? And they did. Rinse and repeat. Samisoni Taukei'aho ices the game with another rolling maul try just minutes later. And I got to tell you, I have never heard truly dead silence in a rugby game before when a try is scored. This was the most airy try. Taukei'aho puts the ball down. I mean, there must have been a few Kiwis there in the stands, but it was like you could hear a pin drop. It was like a morgue out there. The atmosphere was just completely gone from the Córdoba crowd. They knew it was over. Big sigh of relief if you're a Kiwi, though. In the 77th minute, another yellow card, not a very consequential one. Anton Linnett-Brown went high on Chacabarras from Argentina. Funnily enough, I mean, ALB actually looked the worst for wear out of the two of them, but that's not really how the law operates. He did make glancing head-on-head contact, so that's fine. He gets a yellow card. Ultimately, the ABs were able to hold on, put the game to bed. 41 points to 24. What are we thinking, guys? How'd you feel about that? It was messy, but it was the first game of the Rugby Championship. I do think the All Blacks will improve from here, particularly with that returning personnel. Things I liked were, in general, the line-out looked good. Scott Barrett claimed some pill. Holland was a reliable option. Ardie Savea ramped up to top speed at times. He really got us going forward when we were in a little bit of trouble. And you have Will Jordan, the best fullback in the world, at the back. So, look, with those two out there, I mean, that's the modern-day Richie McCaw, Dan Carter. Yep, high praise, but I'm going to stick with that. You know, we have two absolute superstars of the international game in those two. We are always a chance as long as Jordan and Savea are on the field. I thought Cortez Ratama did okay. You know, he's very much the second choice halfback. I'm excited for Cam Roigard to return. I think we're going to go to the next level when he's back. I think he will be throwing the ball to Beauden Barrett. Beauden was very good off the tee today, almost perfect. A good long kicking game as well, and just a smart player, man. Just showed all of his experience, real nous, knew when to kick, knew when to pass. Okay, overplayed the kicks a couple times, maybe kicked a wee bit long, you know, he'd like a couple of nudges back. But in general, I thought he mixed his options brilliantly. I suspect that the most controversial player is going to be Billy Proctor. You know, we talked about a lot of us wanted a statement performance. It wasn't bad, but I don't think it was that statement performance, and it's still showing a little bit of a tendency to go a bit narrow defensively, get a little bit caught out. That concerns me going up against the Wallabies and the Springboks, who I would say have an even more potent backline than these Pumas do when they're firing. The scrum was a solid weapon. The rolling maul was a fantastic weapon. Really got us home at the end, and that's something the ABs can go to. That's a pretty reliable weapon in their arsenal, so I was very pleased with that. But ultimately, it's the mental side of the game that made me happy today. Because, look, we were in a little bit of a hole in the third quarter. We were a man down. It could have been panic stations, but it wasn't. New players came on. They took a minute to integrate, but ultimately they found a way. They played their winning hand. They got the job done. I'm happy with the resilience, and I'm just really happy that we didn't get a fourth quarter fade as we saw last year. That's a kind of deja vu I don't want to see. All right, guys. Let's let today digest. A pretty epic day of rugby, but very curious to read your comments. Leave them below. I'll be reading all of them. Please check out my new rugby Instagram. I'm going to be posting and commenting and interacting through there, so follow that at the link below. Please like, subscribe, send this video to someone who loves rugby, and I will be back for another one real soon as we head into week 2 of the Rugby Championship. Bye for now, guys.